Welcome to the Style and Vibes podcast with me, Michaela. I'll be giving you the inside scoop on music, fashion, culture, and more from Caribbean celebrities and tastemakers across the globe, pushing our culture with authenticity and, of course, style and vibes. Hello, my darlings. Welcome. We are joined by a very special guest today on the podcast, Miss Sha of TingzNice. She also has a podcast, so make sure you guys check that out. But Sha, come on, give us a good intro of all things.
Hey.
All of the things them. Please and thanks.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day. I am Sha. My real name is Shamir, but Sha, everybody calls me Sha. I am the woman behind TingzNice, which is a lot of things. So digital content creation, and I'm an freelance accessory designer. I have my podcast that I launched in January of 2020. So there's a lot of things, mostly surrounding Caribbean lifestyle, lots of carnival content and such. So I'm all over the place. With everything.
So you started the podcast earlier this year, but you have been in the Caribbean lifestyle space for some time. First, let's tell the people which island of origin are you islands of origin are you representing?
Okay. So yeah, I started all this in 2014-ish officially, but for my background, I was raised in Turks and Caicos. My mom is from Turks and Caicos Islands, specifically Grand Turk, the capital, which is not Provo. And my father's side is from the British Virgin Islands. So he's from Tortola. I've never been, so I'm working on getting there, probably during Rona season. But I rep Turks hard because that's all I know.
Can I come?
That's all I know. So 649.
All right. So when you initially started, tell me about the framework and why you started it.
So I started out just wanting to design carnival accessories. So I was doing a lot of like boot designs and bras, wire bras, regular bras, headpieces, tiaras, things like that. Basically starting out doing it for myself. And then my friend, oh, I like that. So my friends were like my first clients. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should do this for real. And so I picked a name and got it registered in New Jersey, where I was living at the time. And it's kind of grown from there. And then also being probably one of the first people in my friends circle to start carnival hopping, and they would have like all these questions afterwards. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should turn this into like a blog thing, where I can document everything that I'm doing, document my experiences, the highs, the lows, and share with people so that I don't have to like continue saying it over and over to different people, and they could just be directed to this article. So it was articles for a period of time, and then I graduated to YouTube, right? And so then it was more vlogs at the time, which vlogging wasn't even like a phrase back then. And then from there, I did that for a number of years. And then like around 2018 or so, I got this idea. I was like, okay, well, maybe I should do a podcast, because that way I'm able to talk about more things, right? And it doesn't have to be limited to a certain amount of text on a vlog, because people don't, or on the blog, because people don't like to read, right? The deeper we go into, the years, the less attention that anyone wants to give a certain piece of reading material. So, and video as well. So I was like, well, with the podcast, people can listen. It can be lengthier, right? I can do like 45 minutes to an hour, and I can like really get in depth with a lot of the topics that I have, because a lot of times when I'm posting, you can't get too deep, right? And you can't get too deep into what it is that you're trying to educate people on. So I felt like the podcast was the way to go. After some bumps, some hurdles, finally able to launch it in January of 2020. So it was really about, my platform like is solely about education, like whether it's carnival education, whether it's design education, whatever it is, I just want to be able to share my knowledge with people so that they can kind of be as successful as possible in whatever it is that I'm educating them about.
So in terms of just sharing your knowledge on the this is gonna be so good. Sharing your knowledge on the carnival cultural space. What would you say was your earliest experiences around carnival as a child growing up, and how do you see yourself, how did it transition as you got older and became an adult?
So younger days, I think the very first carnival I did, which wasn't necessarily carnival, was Junkanoo in Bahamas. So I have family in the Freeport area. So I remember being like 6 or so and them taking us to Junkanoo, which is like lots of like big, carnival costumes, lots of feathers, lots of just like recycled kind of materials and just makajumbis and all of that. So that I remember. Turks and Caicos doesn't have carnival, but we have like a similar thing called Mass Canoe. Like Bahamas and Turks and Caicos are really like cousins. Um, and then in Boston, there's always the Boston Carnival every August. And I used to go there younger, mostly for like the street events, the street food, the vendors, just to see, whether or not they would have like Turks and Caicos flag things, which they never did, which was honestly a motivation. That was like the motivation behind why I started designing stuff, because it's like, okay, the only way that I'm going to get these things is if I start making it myself. And so it was like more so for like me, other small islands that you're not going to find stuff from, like Tortola, Turks and Caicos, like I'm not going to find that. So watching the carnival as a young child in Boston, and then exploring, things started to change once you start making your own money, right? So once I started to, have a job, and then I was able to start carnival hopping, let's see, I think Caravana was first. Going to Caravana, I think in 2004 was my first quote unquote, I'll call it a local international experience. And then after that, I think Barbados was my first international experience. And then you just get hooked. Once you go overseas, it's a wrap. And then you're going to want to go to all of them. At least that's how it happened for me. So it was like an evolution.
What year? Around what year was this that you?
My first internet overseas was 2010.
2010. Okay. And the only reason why I'm referencing the years and the time frame is because I think it's important to understand how it has progressed over the years. Mm-hmm. So in your humble opinion or position, how do you think that that carnival hopping experience has actually happened? Like what kind of clicked in the minds of people? Like I feel like there was this one definitive time, and then people just kind of kept sharing and sharing and sharing, and all of a sudden it became this thing that everybody wants to do, whereas before I feel like it was something that only a few people did, and usually it was very very national country pride, where they were like, I'm going home to go to this carnival, I'm going home to do this. Whereas now everybody inter-island, internationally, has either expressed interest, or they have been, or they've become carnival hoppers themselves.
Yeah. So, okay. So in my mind, I'm going to say that it was definitely 2016. I think before, like you said, like before that, it was like a national thing. Like people who knew about certain carnivals, mostly because like they were from there, that's where they went. So the Trinis are going to go to Trinidad, the Bajans are going to go to Barbados, whatever. So that's where they went. I think 2016 was if I'm correct, the introduction, maybe 2015, 2016, circa, was really the introduction of like when Bermuda started to have their Heroes Weekend, which is now called Bermuda Carnival. JA came out like there was a strong following for Jamaica Carnival, because I went in 2016. I remember everybody who went in 2015, which wasn't really a lot of people, but everybody who went in 2015 raved about JA in 2015, which is why I went the next year. And I called JA 2016 was like the last great JA Carnival, because then after that, it just became so overpopulated. And I think that that happened with the others as well. So nobody was paying attention to Grenada in 2014 and 2015. The hype came again like in 2016, 2017. And then you had Uber Soca Cruise, which came out in 2016. So it's like people's minds started to open up, and they started to see that, oh, there are all these other opportunities. Like, I don't have to just go to Trinidad. I don't have to just go to Barbados. Let me experiment here, there, and everywhere. 2016, I'm lying. Then you had Guyana, who had their first carnival in 2018. I was there for that. So it's like countries are seeing that this is an opportunity to bring people there, and people are seeing that it's an opportunity for them to explore. So I think like it just all started happening at once. And then you have, excuse me, influencers. And I don't know how much each of us actually influence people, but you know, you have like myself and Bohemianista and Global Carnivalist and a bunch of other people who document their trips and allow their followers to see exactly what's going on, which again opens up, you know, people's minds to things. So I really feel like it happened somewhere between 2015 and 2016. The carnival scene just kind of like exploded in different areas.
I like that. So you kind of touched on influencers, and the biggest reason, you know, I think having your perspective is you've had experiences pre the idea of being a carnival influencer, and you were already one without the title, in essence. How do you think that the carnival influencer as a business has kind of transgressed over the years? And it's pretty fast moving, you know, because I feel like you talk about 2014, between 2014 and 2016. I think that 2016 mark for me seems pretty familiar, because it's also the explosion and the access of Instagram. You know what I mean? Like Instagram became the platform, and Carnival is a very visual experience. And you know, you see all of these beautiful people dressed in amazing costumes, and it definitely feels like a different experience than, you know, carnivals here in the States. So that allure, I think, really happened a lot with a lot of people sharing their experiences. So I think, from my perspective, you guys sharing those experiences is what enticed even more people who were curious, because again, you were getting a lot of questions. So that's why you started your platform, to kind of share your expertise from your personal opinion, because it's always been a thing. But even when I went, and I think I went in 2018 to Trinidad, it was an ordeal of planning that took a whole year. It took organization. It took, I mean, you know, it's not just something you do on a whim, especially if you want to get a full experience. And there were things that even I didn't do, because I was just like, I'm too tired. So what, to you, in your mind, how has that kind of the influencer space for Carnival specifically, how has that changed and grown over the last few years?
Let's see. So if I go back to like the original, right, or the beginning. So when I started carnival hopping, there was only one blogger that I knew about at the time, and that's where I went to get my help, like about boots, about certain things. But then I realized that platform started to shift and change, and there were a lot more advertisements, there were a lot more, it was difficult to get to the information that you needed, or the quality of the content wasn't at the level that it was before, or there were like a lot of like recycle posts, and I'm just like, okay, well, this isn't suiting my needs anymore. And so I think, speaking from like how I've grown, there's a lot more collaboration. So I realized that like after a time, and after I guess people realize like the quality of my platform, you get people who want to collaborate with you, right? So there's might be brands, there might be certain sponsorships, or just lots of collaborations overall. So for me, there was one band or a section in a band that I collaborated with by choice. I think it was like a joint thing, so that I would have like TingzNice merch in their goodie bags, and then at the same time I would be promoting who they are, but only doing that because I genuinely appreciate the quality that they offer as a band. And so, and I wouldn't hesitate to co-sign and to big them up so that other people could gravitate to that band the next year. I think what has happened is that continues to happen to influencers, and the opportunities are there, and it can be great if it goes well. But if it doesn't go well, then you have this it's almost like this liability, or people are looking to you to get advice from, or advice on this band, and then when things go sour, you kind of are like that face. And it's not really, I don't like, that's anxiety for me that I don't wish to have, and thankfully I haven't had that experience. But I've seen it happen. So lots of sponsorships. I think we definitely focus, or influencers tend to focus their or cultivate rather their IG page to look a certain way, and make sure that we're offering information but also great visual. So it's a lot of that. Like I don't want to have to think about what the page looks like. I just want to post what I want to post, but at the same time it's like it might not look nice, or it might not look the way that I want it to look. And you're just always thinking about how it's going to be received on the other end. I think that's another thing, like making sure that, I think being tactful in how you speak, what you say, when you say it is a big thing, because you don't want to burn bridges, but at the same time, you want to stay authentic to your audience. So like for me, I'm very, excuse me, I'm very honest when it comes to doing, for example, costume reviews, right? So I'm not going to toss a brand or a band under the under the bridge, but I am going to be honest about, this is what I like. This is my opinion. This is not, this doesn't go for everybody. So I think there's been a lot of influencers wanting to just making sure that they're being tactful and respectful, but while still staying true to who they are, and their audience. So it's a lot of, for lack of a better term, kind of politics as well. And then with the sponsorships and stuff, for some influencers come, some type of payment of sorts. So whether that's you get a complimentary FET ticket, or you get, certain things from the band, or your costume might be free. So I think there's a lot more monetary gifts in some form that were not necessarily there years before, or the idea wasn't there for them years before.
So you said a few things. I think let's go back to, even just the idea of monetization, right? Like, you talked about the idea of a partnership and or a barter kind of deal, where it's, this kind of for that. but also does the amount of work that you put in a partnership always equate to the value that you bring, right? In terms of the band, what they're offering, and the value that you're bringing, are they always aligned and equivalent?
So for me, I don't really know because I don't have that many, or I haven't agreed to that many.
Okay.
But for the ones that I have done, I'm going to say yes, they have.
Okay.
So, because I may not necessarily be putting out a lot. This may just be like, this is that one little thing that I'm doing, and this is this.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it is. I think for me, my biggest thing is wanting to maintain the relationships that I have with them and keep things going for bigger and better things. I think for me, it's always been about exposure. It's never really been about getting the money and using the monies. But when a free FET ticket comes on, I'm like, oh, this is great. This is exciting because now I don't have to worry about, paying $100 for that FET that I was going to go to anyway.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, yeah, for me, it has always kind of lined up. I don't know if that would be the same for others.
Okay. No. I think that's good. So in terms of the idea of commoditizing just carnival culture and the experience itself, there are a few ways in terms of like there's things that like what you do workshops around costume creation and accessories, right? There are dance classes, there are DJs, there are the travel packages and experiences, and those are ways that I've seen and observed in terms of the trends that have been happening around how to commoditize. And that has been happening for a while. Those spaces and places have kind of existed, but I think that there are more people interested in them because there are just naturally more people going. So for example, you're not always gonna be in a FET, so you might go to a fitness class or take a dance class with a really great dancer or something like that to kind of give you that experience when you can't get to a carnival, right? So to me, I think that those things those are ultimately ways we have commoditized carnival and its experiences outside of the actual carnival itself. Enter Mr. White Chocolate. So I think, you and I are familiar with the conversations that have been happening around his commentary. I think the sticking point for me was the idea, that his claim to commoditizing whining as a brand when it has existed in the culture and as a commodity, i.e. dance classes or parties or feds. Maybe, not to his knowledge, but what are your thoughts around just the commentary of that space? Because for me, I think that was completely just a wrong statement on his part, because there are people who are commoditizing whining. It wouldn't be in Zumba. It wouldn't be, in these dance classes that are created by people of the culture. There would be no travel concierge services. There would be no Uber Soca cruise if there was no commoditizing of essentially the dance moves that are associated with Carnival. What are your thoughts around that?
So just to go back just a tad, so when I started doing my classes and because I used to do in-person workshops, like wire bra workshops and stuff, and then on my online platform. And when I started designing, I used to, if I didn't know something, I was like, okay, well, let me try to reach out, to someone who I know is doing this for an insight. And it might be not to get their technique, but just to say, okay, well, what glue are you using? What tape are you using? That's really all that I need. And so you have people who were more than willing to share, and then you had others who kind of like just held it so close to the heart and didn't want to, help, which is fine. And so for me, the reason why I got into, I guess I'm just an educator by heart, but the reason why I got into teaching is because I'm like, well, I want help. I wanted someone to show me how to do this instead of me having to learn how to make a wire bra by disassembling a wire bra that I had from a previous carnival and figuring it out myself. So, and also knowing that the people who probably would be willing to teach me live thousands and thousands of miles away. I'm not going to, or I wasn't necessarily in a position to hop on a plane to go to Trinidad and spend a month or so learning how to wire bend. So for me, it's always been about how do we keep the culture going, right? Because there were people in Turks, when Turks was kind of thinking about having a carnival, coming to me like, well, we want you to, show us this and show us that. So it's like, okay, again, how do we keep this going? And so when when he made his crazy statement, it was just like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Like, how are you paving the way? What is it that you are doing that is giving back to the culture that is keeping us going? And what happened to everything that was done before you even got on the scene, which hasn't been that long? So I was just taken aback by what he said, because I was just like, this absolutely, it makes no sense, and it is completely false. So it was just it was just kind of disturbing. Like I spoke about it on my platform. It was like, yeah, sure, you might be paving a way for people that are the same ethnicity as you, but you're not paving a way for us, because we've been here and we've been doing the work in many different ways. And if you want to talk about whining, then we need to talk about the classes that Royal G has been having. We need to talk about the classes that Inhale Me has been having, and a number of other people that are there. Bruck Wine Addiction in New York City has been doing the same thing. So what, sir, what are you talking about? So that's how I felt about all of it.
Yeah, I think the interesting part is, and I've said this over and over, we are definitely a welcome people. We're not, and, he's not going to be the only person. It probably will happen again, to be completely honest. Because, it's not like we're saying, no, don't come, don't have a good time, don't, you know what I mean? Enjoy the culture. I don't think that anyone is discrediting that. One, he has an affinity for the culture. Two, he enjoys it a whole lot. But when you enter a space that you are being welcomed in, there's no way for you to claim credit when it existed before you got there. Maybe you enhanced it, but I don't even think that's a stretch too, because it's just like, you're just engaging in a way that
he
I
wasn't
think
doing anything. He wasn't doing anything wild. Like your wine wasn't the greatest. Like you're just like I've said, like you've impressed us, because there's a stereotype that people, like that white people can't dance, or that white people don't have rhythm. So it's like when people see that, and you are of the minority, when you are in a carnival space, you stand out. But it doesn't mean that if we put you next to a Black person or a Caribbean person that is whining like the same way or better than you, then what are you talking about?
I think that's part of the problem too. We hyped him. I'm saying, we hyped him up to feel that, his wine was stellar enough to, what I mean, be put on a pedestal. And at what point do we accept responsibility to say, look, well, yeah, we made him popular by showcasing all of his videos and reposting and sharing and hyping him up, even though we knew that it was mediocre. And we saw, and not mediocre by, his own ability, but like you said, put him up against any average Black person, that video wouldn't have gone viral. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think that is where we have to kind of look internally to understand, like, we have to be mindful about how and who we elevate, you know what I mean? Because, you know, people like yourself who have been doing the work, I don't think anything you've done has gone viral, and it's still great work. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I
but
don't think so either. Out here, like they were talking about, someone came on my podcast and they were talking about his numbers. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, he had 160K following. I'm just like, I'm trying to get to 4,000, and you know, he's just posting pictures of him whining, where I'm actually like putting forth content to help people learn and whatever. And that, you know, people are people, like, you know, visuals matter, you know, sex sells and all that. And I'm just like, I'm okay with my almost 4,000, because I know that the people who are following me are genuine for the most part. There's not, I've never paid, you know, any company to try to get me numbers or anything like that. And I'm not going to sit out here and be half naked majority of my posts just to get people's attention. That's not my thing. That's not how I roll. I mean, granted, I do have a number of, you know, out there pictures with, you know, skin and all that, but that comes with, you know, Carnival and fetting and all that. But yeah, I'm like, this dude has 160K for what?
You know? But also, I mean, I haven't, you know, divulged into his audience, but if his audience is primarily of the same ethnicity as him, he is their gateway into our community, just as much as he had a gateway into our community through his friends and or associates. He spent time in St. Lucia and felt comfortable enough, but either there was no one to check him or he just didn't care. So either way, we're in a position now where we're kind of looking and evaluating everyone in the space. But like, it's interesting that, you know, you bring up numbers and engagement, that is such an easy thing to go to when brands are looking at influencers. Say we have this amount of a number of followers, but they're not really evaluating the audience, the quality, the content. They're just looking at numbers over numbers, and a lot of it is just hype. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to know more about, you know, the extent of his influence. And for me, that wasn't even the conversation that he was having. He was literally on a panel about Black Lives Matter and seemingly supposed to be an ally. And that to me wasn't an ally type comment.
Correct. And it wasn't something that it wasn't something that he just said on the spot and slipped with, as according to his apology. Dude, you wrote something in February that said the exact same thing. So it's not like, girl.
Listen, I'm like, girl.
He has a post.
Paraphrase.
He has the post from February when he got to, I think, when he either got to 150K or 160K, and he's thanking everybody for, you know, for supporting yada yada yada, and he said the exact same thing, paving the way for such and such. And I'm just like, so you're not about, like, this is authentically how you feel.
Yes. Ooh.
It was not a mistake. You've said it before.
Yeah. Indeed. So what do you think is going to happen in this space? Do you think it's going to change the minds of the brands that sponsor, that work with influencers? Is there going to be a shift? And this is purely thought and or speculation. None of us have a crystal ball to tell the future. It could be business as usual for him come February. So what are your thoughts in terms of, you know, next steps as a culture and how we can kind of, not only us as a people, but I think what would be your call to action to brands and bands that work with people in the space who claim to be ambassadors?
I think, well, for sure, between this and everything that's happening with Black Lives Matter, between the idleness that is happening because people are at home and they got more time in their hands to look at stuff and listen, and not knowing when the next when the next carnival experience really will be. um People are, for lack of a better term, like, they're woke now. They're a little bit more woke than they were before. And like you mentioned, we're always like very, very inviting, right, and welcoming to people who want to experience the culture, but we're not okay with you um making false claims. So I think, even me, I'm like, you know what? Because I've been sucked in, like, oh, oh shit, go ahead, white boy, okay. Never reposted anything, but that is the feeling that you get when you see it. So now I'm just like, my mentality is, you see it and you keep on moving. Don't draw any attention to it, because this is
But
not
at the same
what it
time,
is.
like, if it's really good and it's blowing you, like, there are some people who it's like it's different, and it's different whether you're black, whether you're white, and it's just good. But don't I think that expectation that you have rhythm or you can participate isn't necessarily a reason to over validate
Right.
your existence in the space, because at the end of the day, I'm the only black person in my department. I don't get praised just for showing up to work. And essentially, that's what it feels like. He's getting overly praised,
Yep.
overpaid, over glorified because he showed up like everybody else.
Yep. Yep. It's just like Issa. It's like Issa said, I'm rooting for everybody black. And so that's the mentality that I am going to have every carnival. Not that I didn't have it before, but that's what it is. So whether that's, making sure to push certain things and push certain, if a male influencer comes out here and he's doing his thing and he's actually whining and teaching whatever, make sure to push that platform. I think brands and bands have to do a better job as well of appreciating each other. I think because colorism is a real thing in the Caribbean, or in the diaspora overall, and just starting again appreciating who we are, skin tone, be it super dark or super light, whatever it is, the blackness that we have and what makes us Caribbean. Because honestly, and granted, I know that there are fairer skinned people in the islands that have actually, been birthed there and know the history, know the culture, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we are who we are. So just supporting each other, really, instead of throwing all that attention one way, like follow somebody else that's actually doing great work. Um, and I think the biggest thing is that for some reason, we tend to get very critical when we're looking at each other, or we're getting very like, it's a this or that, it's a competitive thing that doesn't have to exist. Why can't we just congratulate this person instead of hating in some way or shape or form? I don't know why that happens, but yeah, as soon as the colonizer come, we're giving him all the praises. What?
Yep. I agree. Yes, I think we are very critical of each other. So I think that that is a words. I like that. So I think it will, and that's what the conversation is really about, starting the discussion, having people understand the different perspectives. And I'm hoping he listens and maybe has some sort of understanding around why this is such a big issue, you know what I mean? And I think words are powerful and should be expressed in a way that his love should be expressed in a way that is encouraging and not overstepping, because it was just very off-putting. And I think it didn't serve anyone well, you know what I mean? It didn't really come off as something genuine to the culture of existence that has been and will be after he is no longer influencing in the space. So I don't know, I think it's definitely a challenge. So tell us more about what you have coming up and what you got going on, what's going on with the podcast and give us all the things them
Oh
where
gosh.
you depend.
So I'm in, let's see, as far as the podcast, because of Rona, my travels have kind of like dwindled down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of pivoted to having guests on that for the most part have like Caribbean backgrounds, and so I incorporated a game show called Carnival Crown Revoked. That's been fun. These over the past 5-6 months or so. So that's been fun. It's been a lot of like Carnival and Caribbean trivia, and then so upcoming is my what do I want to call it? My series on basically the Carnival love story. So that is for people who are not necessarily of Caribbean descent, right? So you have people who might be from, Nigeria or other places that are absolutely in love with
Mm-hmm.
um in love with the Carnival culture, and so just getting their stories on like how they started, like who put them on, what their experiences were, what the woes of Carnival planning and all of that, and then the joys of it. So um bringing that back, I started a couple years ago on the blog, and then I never like carried it through. So this is really an opportunity to do that and really highlight the people who truly do appreciate the culture and are not trying to appropriate in any way. So the Carnival Love series is coming, and then as far as the design things, just a lot of updating the website with more of my handmade designs, and falling back a little bit from the custom process, because that's really a lot. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And then revamping, like anyone who goes on my page now will see, they're going to start to see like a difference in how I curate my Instagram page. So like it's like you were saying, like the numbers, while we don't want numbers to matter, numbers do actually matter. And so people like pictures, they don't like graphics. I'll notice that they'll love this picture, but if I put this graphic up, it's not going to get a lot of likes. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's not seen or it's not being shared, but you still, like, at the end of the day, I still want the numbers, because it's essential when you have people who are looking at the brand for certain things. So anyway, that's going to start to look a little different, but I'm still going to have my graphics and data there, because the digital content has to be like educational, in my opinion. So anyway, so there's that. And yeah, I kind of feel like, is that all? I can't remember. Oh, and then the recipes and things, that's another way that I try to stay, give people.
Wait a minute, you have cooking classes
Yeah.
that one?
Well, I don't know about the cooking classes, but the blog
Just
post
the post.
recipes
Oh,
are going to
okay,
be
okay,
there.
okay, okay, good, okay, good,
Not
okay,
that.
good. All right,
That's
all
different.
right. I hear
Mm-hmm.
you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sha. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys check her out. TingzNice. I'll include all of the information on her and what she has coming up in the show notes. But until next time, Leah Tummy Peeps.
Yeah.